So we're going to start and have a look at some shading techniques. Here we're going to be looking at whip shading, sometimes known as pepper shading, and also our pendulum shading. Now this is called the whip technique. As you can see, I am whipping the needle towards myself and I'm scuffing the surface of the skin. So the technique, I always say flick with the fingers, not with the wrist. And you're almost smacking the skin as you come on, creating those beautiful pixels. So you can see the motion that I'm doing. I'm flicking with my fingers. Now you can flick towards you, you can flick away from you, and you can do what we will have a little look at in a moment, is called the pendulum move, where you're flicking backwards and forwards to create those speckles. So here I'm flicking away from myself, and as you can see, I'm still using my fingers and my wrist is fairly still in this process. Now you can layer and build up your speckles depending on the look that you're going for. You can have black and grey pieces that are done only with whip shading and pendulum shading. With this particular design, I don't want to go too heavy with my shading, and I do want to keep some nice clean lines when it comes to my pepper shading. So I don't want to overlay or overlap some of these lines too much, but for areas where I want this to be darker, such as the area I'm currently working on, you can overlap your lines. Remember, shorter and tighter strokes equals more density. Longer and looser, you will get a lighter look. So you want to hear the scuffing on the surface of the skin. I call this the cat sound. You want to actually hear your cartridge hitting onto the skin. Now we're going to look at the pendulum swing. So this is the backwards and forwards motion. Now what makes this nice and consistent is if you imagine an arc. So as you're hitting the skin and as you come out, you're coming out and hitting the skin at the same angle and at the same consistency. So you want to imagine a nice arc as you flick with the fingers and then pull back with the fingers. So you can see I am flicking backwards and forwards with my fingers, not with my wrist. Still got my cartridge resting on my middle finger, and I'm keeping my wrist nice and still whilst flicking with the fingers. Now you can do this as an exercise and a practice just in the air, holding your wrist as you flick your fingers backwards and forwards. It does take a bit of practice, but the more you get used to it, you'll get muscle memory. And remember, you're listening for that cat sound, backwards and forwards, scuffing the skin. So to build up this piece, I'm just going to use a combination of both the whip shading but also pendulum shading as well, just to build up a little bit of density and get some nice clean peppered lines in there.